Looking like a proper salesman here in the corner, but don't worry, I'm not going to sell you anything. I'm just going to share some ideas from Iceland. How to protect our islands. How can we make sure we're secure? Some insights we have learned during the past years. So how to protect an entire island when the world's most powerful leaders are in the city. 1.5 years ago, I joined the CERT team of Iceland, and we were 7 at the time, and we were tasked with protecting Iceland. We thought we could handle it. After all, Iceland wasn't a major target for big threat actors. That's what we believed. But then all the Europe's biggest leaders decided to come to Iceland for a summit where they were deciding big issues regarding Ukraine and how they would help with the assistance for regarding the war. Zelensky, Sunak, Macron, they all came, and it was one of the biggest events in Icelandic history. And so we had more security than we've ever had in Ireland. Actually, we had to ship all the police officers all around the country in the capital. So we had enough people. We even had to import some security officers. We had the city was in lockdown mode, police officer everywhere. We even had snipers from the USA on the roof, and a large chunk of the city was closed off. Millions was spent on new weapons in Iceland. In Iceland, we never buy weapons. We don't have an army, and our police officers don't even wear weapons, daily. But there we suddenly had to buy a lot of new equipment. So physical security was covered. But when it came to cybersecurity, not one extra dollar. So what happened? Yeah, as you can see here, lots of police and snipers on the roof. What happened? Well, here are some news from the time. Cyber attacks. More cyber attacks in 3 days than we've had the entire year. Ransomware, DDoS attacks, government websites were crashing down. Even airport server went down. Even though it was behind, DDoS protection, they managed to get the IP address of the web server directly and attack that. So they had some quite good ways to figure out where to attack and when, and it all happened just as Zelensky was holding his speech, and also during these 3 days. And we were overwhelmed. We were, and we felt a bit like the Icelandic president here, where he's on his way to the meeting, and the cyber attacks were the Icelandic wind, and we have only this little umbrella that's not doing anything. So we tried to solve this on our own, but it was quite difficult and the attacks continued. So we had to take measures further and put the country on the uncertainty phase. We have these 3 phases, and we only ever used it once before. That was when the Log4j vulnerability came out. You might remember that one. And this was the second time and the only time we've used it since. That means everybody knows about it. We don't have many people, 380,000, so it's easy to get the news out. And that also means security teams at the companies that were being attacked, they, the leaders, they realized how important this was, and then they got more resources during these days. And contingency plans got used, and more data was shared with us. So that was really helpful, and but still the attacks continued. And that's when I thought, what can we do now? And so I sent out a few emails, cold emails to CERT teams around Europe. One of them to Switzerland, because I grew up there. I thought, yeah, they maybe know something. So, and it turned out they'd been hit by the same threat actor just a few weeks before, and had just finalized a really nice report that they shared with us. And this was like getting the golden key to the castle, because it was exactly their methods, and which including block lists, which we could send to all stakeholders, and we were able to stop most of the attacks quickly with this. And that shows us that when in need, we should not be afraid to ask for help. But there's also one other thing we learned there, which is don't tweet about the attackers, because we did, and they liked it. It made them feel good, and they posted it everywhere. And we also became a target. Our website went down, and we had shared hosting, so lots of other websites went down actually also, but they did not realize that. So the attack was even more successful than what they posted on the channels, but don't tell them that. But now we're behind better protections. But we had to put this in the news because Icelandic news, it was quite first time Iceland been hit by a real threat actor from a nation state, and that's why it was big news, and they loved the attention. What also we had to do, one measure you might relate to being on an island, we had to, or there was so many vulnerabilities, we're trying to use so many vulnerabilities as well as sign into so many systems that we had to, that few companies, they actually blocked all traffic that's not from Iceland to their servers. So complete block from all the traffic for a few minutes. Well, the threat landscape is evolving for us, and I want to share with you a few incident stories that show that. In Iceland, we have this electronic ID system. This is very convenient, and 99.8% of the population have it tied to the SIM card. So with that, we can log into all our banks. We can log into Iceland.is, which has all our health, all our records. We get our finance data there. We can even ask for divorce there. It's basically we're trying to digitalize all major services in Iceland, and this has been going for a few years. And as I said, very convenient. Even my grandmother can use it, and but that also means it's very convenient because we only need one phone number. And then you can press the button. That means the request goes to the phone, and you just have to accept it there, and then you're in. So one way to attack this is just to fill out random numbers and hope someone accepts, just out of habit, because we're so used to accepting this all the damn time. Or just copy this website and send it out. And then people think they might be logging themselves into Iceland.is, but the request actually goes to the bank, and then you are accepting a request which logs the attacker into your bank account. So we had the biggest phishing campaign we've ever seen. So this was also new to us because we really see this only targeted to the Icelandic infrastructure, because this is our system, and they have really, it's been, we have seen the evolution going like step by step, becoming better. So this was the email. It's just said you had to update your ID on Iceland.is, and then when you clicked and tried to log in, they went into your bank account, and even sometimes they even applied for loans when they could not take out enough money, but they had really sophisticated ways of transferring money out, for example, going through Icelandic Bitcoin exchanges to not raise too many flags. So we got so many reports during these weeks, and that's when we went into more aggressive DNS blocking with our telcos, and they were really willing to respond. And the benefit of being small is we only need to contact 3 to 5 people that can block DNS resolver that most of our country uses. And with that, we were able to block this really quickly, and they tried much fewer attacks after that, and damage. Right now, we're not seeing any attacks like this, and I think that's a big, in part because of these quick blocking with the telcos. And what we also see here is good Icelandic. This is perfect Icelandic. You would not realize it has any errors, and because Iceland, we have often had the phrase, speaking Icelandic will save us. You know, the attackers, we will always see through scams. And that's what worked for many years. But now, Chat or OpenAI decided to use Icelandic as the second language to train it. And in this news article, it says, this is a happy day for the Icelandic language. Well, it's not a happy day for us in the CERT team. We expected this to happen, and we've seen a huge increase in these scams in the last 2 years, where they're just getting better, especially with Messenger, like social media, where they have to interact many times. But and also with just phishing emails or phishing SMS. Like here we have an old one to the left, and here we have after the emergence of ChatGPT with Icelandic to the right. It might not look like anything to you, but here I have in red all the things that are wrong in the old version, and here nothing is wrong. So it's more difficult to see through this. We've also seen videos of people using deepfakes to talk Icelandic. We've seen Mr. Beast having many commercials on YouTube aimed at kids, trying to get them to sign up to some scam sites, and he's talking Icelandic there. It still sounds quite robotic, but we think it's just going to be maybe 1 or 2 more years until it's going to sound really natural, like a real Icelander talking. Let's move on to another typical phishing attack, which is when we get an SMS and they tell you that you have to fill out some information to get your package. I'm sure you all received such an attack or seen it somewhere. This is just very typical. Fill out your information and then fill out your payment information. And they even have this 3D secure, so you have to send the code, so they have the whole chain. And after this step, usually it's quite hard to get the money back, because if you confirm it with 3D secure, or you probably know this better than me, but that's what they tell me in Iceland, the banks. So we have to try to stop people to input all the confirmations. And when we do this, usually we just do a takedown request on the site and DNS block it in Iceland and put some awareness out that this is a campaign we've seen right now. And sometimes we get on our Teams channels with institutions, we get some interesting findings. So here, one of our stakeholders from a company which we're in contact with, he shared this screenshot which shows that this phishing site had an open directory on the link. So here was the malicious URL, and the open directory was just here. So yeah, it's behind me, but it's and there we could see all his files. So we of course liked that and looked into it and saw then the code behind the website. And we also found the admin phishing kit control panel where you can create all these websites in just a matter of seconds. You can just, you want to SMS phishing or card phishing or whatever, you can just, it's a good menu which generates websites in seconds. But when you find such open directory, what is good to look for is the config.php. there they often have the details, how they exfiltrate the information. So when a user fills something out, they need to get the data. How do they use that? And when you get the code behind it, you should see how they send the data over. And in this case, they were using Telegram. Telegram is really popular because it's so easy to set up a bot, which is just HTTPS. And so you can just write one line to send messages to a chat. So the attackers just had a chat where they received all the info what people were filling out on the phishing site, so all the credit card info. But now we also had this bot API, bot token, and the chat ID. So we were able to loop through all the possible message IDs and copy it to another chat, a chat we initiated with ourselves. And with that, we were able to recover all these messages. It just came up in our chat, and it was a nice insight that we don't get with many campaigns, because here we were able to recover all the input that was inputted into the files, and in total it was 1,295 like personal information and 790 credit cards. So this particular campaign was not only aimed at Iceland, it was a few other countries as well at the time, but 54 individuals and 3 Icelandic companies were in there. So that gave us the opportunity to just directly call them, tell them you should change your credit card. And then we had the new issue that people how do we make them trust us? Just they get a call and they say, hey, did you just fill out your credit card somewhere and you should change it? So we were almost in the attacker's shoes. Like, how can we get them to trust us to do something with their credit card? But we were able to contact them all as well as the banks, and there was not much damage from this one. And here we also got information from one of the banks that tried to fill it out themselves, and they saw, okay, they were trying to take out 430 euros from cardjet.com. And if we multiply this with all the cards, then it would be around 326,000 euros damage. Is of course a high number for one campaign, but it shows what they could have possibly gotten if all of these 790 credit cards were valid and they were able to take money out. And we also have some good metrics from this one, so 2.5%, because we reached out to the telcos to see how many SMS were being sent, and so of these SMS were about 4,000. 2.5% filled out the first page with the private information, but then they stopped and did not fill out any credit card info, and then 1.25% filled out the credit card info. So that gives us a number estimate. If you send out 100 SMS with this, we might get one victim. We have been after that, we have found also other open directories in other cases and done the same thing to just let all the stakeholders know. And here is a nice example from a site that was not phishing for credit cards, but credentials. And the code behind the site was just open. So when we scanned the site, we looked at the document object model. We could see, oh, he's just posting the data that gets filled out to this website. And then when we visited this website, it was just open directory with like 12 folders, and they were each for a single phishing campaign, and it was all open. And there they just wrote the logs directly on the web server, so we did not have to exfiltrate it with Telegram bot. We were just able to get the text file with all the logins and passwords. And turns out, if you want to hack someone in Iceland, it's quite high probability that they're going to have one of these two passwords. So this is summer 2024 or winter 2024. I guess that's because of company policy where you have to change every few months. We also had autumn 2024, or we even saw summer like 2018. So this one hadn't changed. So if you are using this type of password, recommend to change it because, and I actually mentioned this at home with my wife, and she said, "How did you know my password?" So that was incredible. I could not believe her, but she has changed it now. And another interesting thing we see here in the code is that they made deliberately attempt count 3 on the site. So people that had they every time someone was filling this out, they had to try 3 times, which means we saw it in the logs that they were often logging in 3 different times, with 3 different passwords. So now the attackers have one email and 3 different passwords, which they can try on multiple sites where this email is registered. So that was a kind of easy tactic by them, but very effective to get more passwords. And just to show our actions here, we are trying to just do what we can do and then share the information to other parties. So what we always do is take down off the site and block it, and then here we share the information with the victims, Icelandic banks to block the seller, like the one that's taking out the money from the credit card, Nordic Financial CERT. So we're in touch with many communities like that, and as well as the National Commissioner's Office. And they went to it with the info because they had a lot of data about Luxembourg, and they contacted Interpol and authorities in Luxembourg, and they were really happy to receive it. And it showed us also, like the National Commissioner's Office, they really wanted to keep this channel open because they like to share with other countries whenever, because Iceland does not often have like a scoop for another country. So whenever we get something like this, they are quite happy. And the Spanish CERT team, because the seller, the one that was taking out the credit cards, was in Barcelona, and I thought maybe they can do something with it. So here we see like how CERT IS is connected. We have this critical infrastructure. There we got the information about the Open Directory. We have telecommunication companies, which we use to block the website. We have the National Commissioner's Office, which we use to send the report, and he could share it. And the Reykjavik Metropolitan Police, which is actually the best influencer in Iceland. We use him a lot to raise awareness because he has so many followers, just the Reykjavik Police, because people are always wanting to know what's the latest news. So that's really good, and as well other CERT teams. So the green is just the one that we reached out to during this case, and we also are connected to others. And when you look at these arrows, it looks a bit like sensors, or we are trying to communicate back and forth. So we are kind of like a sensors. So we like to call it like, what is our sensor network in Iceland? We don't have a fancy sensor network like Finland, for example, where it's huge devices all around the country capturing traffic. We just say our personal connections are our sensors. So we try to make easy as possible for staying in contact with people, staying in contact with critical stakeholders. So we have these sector groups, for example, finance group or transportation group, healthcare, energy sector. And because we are, Iceland, not that big, we are able to get all the major companies just in a Teams chat, in a Teams channel. Everyone is using Teams. So it's quite easy to share back and forth, just like in a chat. And for each sector, we have this community group where people are sharing incidents among themselves, as well as a direct channel CERTIS with a big energy company. And this has helped us get the message out quickly, and as well as just get them to share data with us, building trust. So we have realized that fewer people on the call, usually there's more sharing, and the more we meet, there's also more sharing. So that's why we have these monthly calls with our sector groups, as well as once in a year in-person meeting. And this is what is our strength, I believe. So in these channels, we also have one we have with all of the payment processors in Iceland. And we like to, or I thought it almost is like crowdsourced incident handling, because here we have an example. One person just found a new type of attack, and this particular attack, we have this big selling platform where people sell used stuff in Iceland, and now it's just happened last week. People are are claiming to be buyers, and then they set up a special website where they say, here is, we will send, I have already paid shipping, and you just have to fill out your information here, and you will get the money. And we have not seen this before, so we just posted there with screenshots, very interesting. And then we, as a CERT team, we comment, okay, we can analyze it, we process it, then someone else comes in and says, oh, I looked at this from this angle. And then maybe another bank says, okay, I tried to put in information there, and I see the credit card processor or the seller that's trying to take out money is this, and then they share like a screenshot of this. So we have some ID and name and terminal, which then all the banks can block at the same time. And this has been really great. So we don't try to do everything ourselves, and we just try to get the message out there quickly what we're seeing, and then comment as we go what's the status of this. And this is I think the only place in Iceland where all the banks can communicate together because of the competition law. So it's quite the unique conversation we're having there. Of course, only around security, because should not be a competition thing. But when we cannot block quickly enough, we of course also need to raise awareness to the public, and that's always good to do that. We have few news outlets, so it's easy to get the message out, but we have to be strategic with the press reports such that people will still listen to us when there's something really important. We don't want to be, what's the story with the wolf, boy who cried wolf every night. And here we see an example of just our director. He's always in the news, and it's quick, to go on the front page of major Icelandic news website that everyone is looking at every day. And some people have joked around, why can't we catch this guy? We also, with our ministry, have good collaboration. Here is an example, a real Instagram video our minister made in collaboration with us about this Icelandic electronic ID scam, and she explained everything in a video format for her followers. But sometimes awareness is not enough, and because we have dependence on few actors, one small outage can have a major impact. This is an example also from 2nd October, where half the country did not have electricity, and it was just because of one malfunctioning device in one system, and it had a bad impact where hospitals did not have electricity for 10-15 minutes, and we somehow had to communicate through walkie-talkies, and yeah, these events always show us how dependent we are on few, and we need to make sure all the systems are secure. And one way we are trying to do that with one exercise is called the Iceland Unplugged exercise, which we are going to host next January. There we're just gonna ask what happens if Iceland gets unplugged, disconnected from the outer world. And I see here now how small Jersey is. I can't almost see it on this map, but here to the right, I expanded a bit. So it seems, even though we are much smaller than Iceland, you still have as many undersea cables as we have. So that's quite impressive, because we just have the last one 2 years ago, and we were really proud of that. But data centers, they don't really consider Iceland to be good spot, even though we have cheap electricity, because of the uncertainty with these undersea cables. And we also don't want to imagine what would happen if someone were to cut all of these 4 cables, because it is essentially just a small cable that you could cut with a submarine. So we are going to test this next year, and the question what we want to answer is what will break. And we did already a round of interviews with the telecommunication sector, and they said probably everything. Now everything's in the cloud, and yeah, but most of them did not have a clear overview of what would work and what not. So here are just a few things they mentioned which we should have to see if it works. For example, a big one is password managers, which many use. Do they have a, like, are they hosted in Iceland, or do they connect to Europe or somewhere? Or DNS service, voice over IP services, update servers. Does Teams work? No, it doesn't. Like all of these things, how are we gonna communicate? Right now it's easy with the Teams channels, but what if everything goes down? So to try to answer these questions, we are going to have a tabletop exercise in January with all sector groups. It will be around 120 people, and we go through each stage of submarine cable cuts. And then we will also try to do some real world testing where we just route all the traffic. We can't do real world testing and actually unplug everything. There are so many SLAs with, it's just a bit dangerous to do that. So nobody in the sector groups wanted to do that except one person. And so we are not going to do that, but we're just going to simulate the real world testing. So by routing the traffic, and then also by limiting the traffic, so we are simulating then a satellite connection. Because right now Iceland does not have sufficient satellite connection to cover all of our major needs, and it's going to be really slow. So this will be interesting to see what will come out of that. And we have also talked to the CERT in Tonga, which is a small island near New Zealand, because they only have one cable, one undersea cable, and they have outages 3 times since 2019. Once it was a fishing trawler, and then it was an earthquake, and then it was something else. And they had outages for many weeks, and because the repair boats could not come at the time, and yeah, we see a bit the effects what could happen there. At one time they had established a satellite connection in one place in the island, and then all of the inhabitants came there with their phones to try to connect. So just a scenery of what could happen during a scenario like this. And then one last thing I want to mention is a public-private partnership we have that's been working well for us. It's called Defend Iceland. It started this year, but it was supposed to be called Hack Iceland. He wanted to, but then as he was applying for grants, the Defend Iceland sounded better for most people, so now it's called Defend Iceland. It's a nationwide vulnerability disclosure program, so coordinated vulnerability disclosure program. That means ethical hackers can sign up and try to hack the people that are registered there. Initially, the goal is to get all the companies by default in Iceland to be on there. That's why it's called Defend Iceland. So we're trying to make the whole island more secure. And they applied for a grant in Digital Europe, which is and they got 2.53 million euros. And you have to have a clean criminal record to sign up to be an ethical hacker. And we have already received many positive reports, for example, from the hospital in Iceland. They say this is better than internal penetration testing, because here we have real things people see from the outside, and they fix it immediately. And the 95% of the vulnerabilities reported so far were not found by basic vulnerability management tools. And one thing also that makes this a bit special is that we have big players that are paying big bounties, so the ethical hackers get paid when they find something critical. But of each payment, there always goes 10% to a community fund, where the goal is that smaller companies that don't have money to pay the ethical hackers if they find something, that they can use money from the community fund to pay them. So it will be interesting to follow this project and see it rise during next years. So how do we secure our islands? Well, I believe collaboration is our strongest defense. And if we collaborate, that's what I'm doing here, collaborate with you, sharing insights from us. Matt and Paul from Jersey CERT have collaborated a lot with us, and we're really nice. So you are definitely doing your part, and I think this is the key, because we all want to be more secure and fight this together. And I believe together we can weather any storm, and we can have a better than the umbrella of the president during the Icelandic wind. We can build something more robust and maybe even a shelter together if we collaborate and everybody is open to sharing. And with that, I'm done.
Aðalsteinn, thank you very much indeed. We can probably squeeze one question in. I've got one other, but if anyone has a question, we can squeeze one in. No? In which case, I was thinking that the room that we're in at the Radisson here in Jersey at the moment, I remember 5 or 6 years ago, a guy from Finland landed here to join the KPMG security team. And his first slide was a picture of a deck chair at on St Brelard's Beach, slightly photoshopped, with a big oversized USB stick on it. And he basically said, "This is Jersey's attitude to security." I suspect in Iceland, you can leave your laptop on the backseat of your car and it will still be there in the morning. Obviously, things have moved on thanks to everything that all of us, and particularly the JCSC, have been doing. How has it been in Iceland with regard to the development of the general public awareness or realization of the whole cyber threat thing?
The awareness is much better than it was, especially with the European Council meeting. There, like now, everybody knows who we are, I feel, although they often think we are a company which almost has the same name, which is called Syndis. But I mean, it's not the worst to mix up. And also, with the new regulation coming, NIS 2, where the thing is that the people in charge, they are accountable for the security, so not just the technical peoples, but the people in charge of the whole company. And it says that even if you don't withhold these, if you don't make sure that everything is according to these rules, you might even go to prison. So that's what it says in the law, although it will probably never be enforced. But this has really also made a shift in the awareness of the leaders of the companies, and they're putting more focus on security now.
Aðalsteinn Johnsson, thank you so much for joining us from Iceland. It's been a delight.